Assalamu alaikum. Okay, it is 3 p.m. and as I promised yesterday, I am here online. I just need to give me a minute while I log on to my Instagram people. I cannot leave my IG people out. Nope, that's not what I need. I need here. There we go. Now I'm live on Instagram and Facebook. All right. So today we are talking about how do we level up for 2020 and smash our goals no matter what they are, how big they are, how small they are, how much we've failed to achieve them last time. The first thing that we have to do is we have to identify what we're doing, where we're going, what we're trying to achieve. The day before yesterday, I put on my story how many people are starting to plan for 2020, and I got a huge 100% of people said they were not planning right now for 2020. Oh, so that's the first time I ever got 100% of anything. Whether or people were or were not doing. So I was a little bit surprised because we only have 2.5 weeks left to December, and then we are already in 2020. Now, if you know me and you've been following me for a minute, then you know I am not a huge New Year's resolutions person. I don't believe in making some arbitrary every year I'm going to lose 30 pounds in January and then by February you're already not following the plan or being inconsistent in the gym. I'm not a huge fan of that. Generally for me in the past, what I do is I normally set really specific personal development goals, right? So, and I do it in January, but only symbolically, not because it's January. Oftentimes I'll also set a second goal during Ramadan or at the end of Ramadan that I want to achieve before the next Ramadan. So one, you don't have to wait till January in order for you to set a specific goal. And number two, you certainly don't have to only set a goal once a year. It's just symbolically, it's pretty easy to go along with the calendar that we already follow when it comes to New Year's kind of thing. But I do believe in planning. I do believe in creating specific goals around your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, as well as specific goals around your career, around your finances, around your relationships. So those are like 6 areas that I think that is really important. Wa alaikum salam Ali on Facebook. Assalamu alaikum. On Instagram we have Musa Bibas, Aichu 2, Kunanti, and Nora. Assalamu alaikum. So, yesterday we talked about what is it that we specifically need to do around goal setting. So I'm going to apologize for a couple things first. When I write, it might be backwards because I need to be able to see comments. So when I face the camera towards me, when I turn the camera in selfie mode, because I'm live on my phone, then this, when I write, might be backwards. This is a piece of paper pad on my wall. I am not writing on my wall, just so you can be clear. And so if you are just tuning in and you're not quite sure what you're tuning into, my name is Mubaraka Ibrahim. I'm a health and happiness coach. You are tuning in to day 13 of my 30-day live value giving videos. And I wanted to, a couple of things. One, I want to thank you for tuning in. And number two, if you are watching this on Instagram and you are curious as to the previous ones, or you saw some of the previous ones and you want to know what we talked about, or you didn't see and you want to know what we talked about, Instagram does not save the videos, but Facebook does. So you're gonna go to Facebook, you're gonna look for the Fit Muslimah Mubarakah Ibrahim page, and then you're gonna click videos, and then you're gonna see all of the videos that I did since forever owning the Facebook page. But you can start from December 1st. Anyway, so when we talk about setting goals, the first thing, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about kind of like how you want to view setting your goals, and then what is the practical application of it. Let me know, one, where you're calling into. Number two, let me know what goal do you have for 2020. Yesterday we had somebody say that their 2020 goal was to start to homeschool. I thought that was awesome, right? So if you have a specific goal that you're trying to achieve in 2020 and you're not sure how to break it down and what you need to do first, tell me what that is, and let's brainstorm a little bit. So when I do a couple of things, so I believe in beginning with the end in mind, right? I think that this is not just a great philosophy that was written down by Stephen Covey, right? But it is also something that is taught in Islam, is what we do all the time, right? Everything we do, we think about its impact in the akhirah. That is what we do. That is how we function. So begin with the end in mind. You should certainly plan for a year out. You should also imagine your life 5 years out and 10 years out. What are the things that you really want to achieve in that time? And how do we break it down, right? How do we achieve those things step by step? Because, for example, if you say, you know what, I want to make $1 million in 1 year. That doesn't necessarily make it unrealistic. Now, if you're currently making $10,000 a year, you might not want to set $1 million as your goal for this year, right? But keep it as an ultimate goal. Maybe you will make $1 million this year, and you have specific steps for that. And hey, kudos to you if you do. But one of the things I think that is also really important is make your goals realistic. So too big to see them, but not so big that they are out of reach. So that's important. Once you have your specific goal, I am a huge advocate of setting out what does that look like for you to achieve in a year, right? So we have 1 year. And I also like breaking that year down into quarters, right? So quarters is 4. So your piece of paper is going to first create a 4 diagram. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So if you are not familiar with how you break your year down, quarters are literally 1/4 of a year, so it's 3 months. So this would be January, February, and March. This would be April, May, and June. This would be July, August, and September. And this would be October, November, and December. All right? So those are your quarters. Every quarter, you should be checking in on yourself to make sure that you are on track. So now that I have my year broken down in quarters, what I like to do is I like to go and do a achievement check-in the week before, like the 3rd week of the month. So the 3rd week of March, I'm doing an achievement check-in. Now, depending on, so let me say this too. I do this as a personal, I'm not going to spell the words, I do this as a personal way of goal setting, but I actually originally learned this from a business coach, and I would do it as a business goal setting and when I own my fitness studio. So this can be used personally. It can also be used for your business. And when I say the third week as an achievement check-in, if you are a person that has employees, so when I owned a fitness studio, a full fitness studio, I had trainers who worked underneath me, I had an administrative assistant, and I would schedule it for us to do something for 2 consecutive days. It was like 5 of us. We only needed 2 days, right? If you're doing it for just yourself, you may need 1 or 2 days. And you don't need an entire week. If you are doing it for your organization and you have to do an achievement check-in for 30 people, then you might need an entire week, and you plan that weekend like, okay, so Monday we're gonna talk about what everybody's sales numbers were, and on Tuesday we're gonna talk about what were some of the things that we learned during the previous quarter. So I like doing it on the 3rd week because there's nothing worse than being crunched for time. Like, oh, tomorrow starts my next quarter. What is my goal gonna be? Don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself, right? So right before that quarter is over, you're checking in with yourself, you're seeing what your achievements were, and planning for the next quarter. So an example of what I would say an annual goal. So let's say that our goal, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, doing weight goals is just easy for me. But this can be used financially. It can be used for personal development. It can be used in different ways. In fact, the way that I use it personally is I actually set what are 3, so I mentioned 6 areas when we first got started, but I personally don't like to feel really overwhelmed with having a long list of check, right? Oh, did I do this? Did I do that? So what I do is I choose 3 things that are super important, right? So if I feel like, so again, because I tell all my business and I'm so transparent with you, I will tell you what I did last year. So last year, I felt like I was really not an engaged sibling, right? I felt like I needed to improve my relationship with my siblings. And so I literally set a goal for myself at the beginning of the year. Once a month, I'm going to visit this sibling. Once a month, I'm going to make sure that I'm having lunch with this sibling, right? So making sure that I'm improving those relationships by taking those steps, right? So again, I don't set really arbitrary goals, but I needed to make sure that not only that personally that I felt like, okay, if I want to be a sister who is loving, present, and caring, what does that physically look like? It physically looks like me being physically present with my siblings. That's one thing that it looks like. It may look like you giving a gift. If you have a sibling whose love language is gifts, love language is something else. We should talk about that one day. Is receiving gifts, then it may look like, I'm going to buy my brother a book, right? Because he loves to read, right? What does the physical manifestation of those feelings look like, right? So everything that we feel has a physical manifestation. It has a way of showing itself, and it's up to you to figure out, well, I want to feel better about the way that I look, right? What do I need to do to feel better about the way that I look? And affirmations is not the answer, right? Affirmation is a tool, right? So I think this, so I might say something that's a little bit controversial. And again, I don't believe in body shaming. I don't believe in bullying. I don't believe in people, in fact, I don't believe you should talk bad about yourself by saying things like I'm fat or I'm ugly or things like that. You really, because everything that you say, it's manifest 3 times. 1, you had to think it before you said it. Number 2, it had to come across your lips when you say it, right? So words is a physical thing. And number 3, your ears are the closest to your mouth, so you're the first person that heard it. So before the words go out to hit somebody else's ears, you have already said it to yourself 3 times before that person has heard it, or before it's said in the mirror. So I really believe that that's important. But if you are in a place where you're like, okay, I really don't like the way that my body looks. I really don't like the way that my body feels, right? You're talking about a feeling. What is the physical manifestation? What is the physical thing that you need to do in order to change that feeling, right? And it's not just, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to say I'm okay with who I am, because if you're unhealthy, you're not okay. Accepting that you're exhausted all the time, that you can't tie your shoes without sitting down on a chair, that you can't pray and make a complete sujood, or you can't sit in jalsa for a long time because your knees hurt. Saying I'm okay with that is not going to change it. It's just going to make you put a cloud over the things that you need to change about yourself. So if what you want to look like is not what's looking back at you in the mirror, what are the physical things that you need to do in order to change that, right? So what are those things? That is what you plan for. You don't, and again, we'll talk about, that's actually one of the videos that I wanted to do before the end of the month is, what is affirmations? What are they used for? And what are they not used for? I find that a lot of people really use them as excuse makers, right? They're just telling themselves, it's called an ego masturbation. You're just telling yourself that all of this great things, and there's really no action behind it. Affirmations should have action behind it, right? Because affirmations is a form of a prayer. It is a form of you talking out what you want to achieve, but you can't just talk it and say it just to say it. So, back to our calendar. So, year-end quarters. The last week of each quarter, you should be doing a check-in and planning, right? So, in March, I'm going to check in that I've achieved the things that I was supposed to achieve in January, February, and March. And I'm going to plan, right? Or replan what I need to do in the second quarter. More appropriately, replan. The reason why I say replan is because we're planning for the whole year. If you, for example, again, I'm going to use weight as a thing because that's probably, 70% of what I do, so it's an easy reference for me. If your goal by the end of the year is to lose 100 pounds, right? That means between January and March, you need to lose 25 pounds. But say between January and March, when you come to your check-in, you've only lost 5 pounds. Obviously, you are going to have to reanalyze and replan what you're doing in that second quarter, right? Because you haven't achieved your goal. If between January and March you've lost 30 pounds and your goal was 20 pounds, then you again may have to adjust the things that you had planned to do in that second quarter. You want to make sure that you are constantly checking in on yourself, right? So that's really important. The third part of this is now let's kind of like bring it back down more of a bird's eye view to each quarter, each week, right? You should also have weekly check-ins with yourself and daily check-ins with yourself, right? Every single night, you should be having something where you don't have to journal, but I do believe that you should at least write down what your most important things for you to achieve the next day, and then check in with yourself at the end of each night and see if you achieved those things. You should be doing this on a daily basis. When you are setting your ultimate goal, so say your goal next year is, hey, you know what? I want to be debt-free by the end of the year. Then you have to start doing the work now in order for you to do that, right? You have to Find out what's your true debt, what's your true net worth, right? So your net worth is the money that you owe versus the money and assets that you have, and what's left over is your net worth. If your goal is by the end of the year, I want to be worth $500,000, but right now you're even, right? So you owe $250,000 in debt, and your biggest asset is your house, and it's worth $250,000. You have a zero net worth, right? That means once your debt is paid off, it leaves zero. But if you own $1 million home and you are $100,000 in debt, hey, that's your biggest asset. Hopefully you'll have some savings. Then you have a net worth. Or your goal may be, by the end of the year, which I think this is really fascinating. 80% of Americans do not have $1,000 in savings in the bank, right? That's insane. There's no planning. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Most people are not, and I'm not saying savings is the way for you to increase your economic state. We know that saving and pinching penny is not going to make you richer. You really need to create additional streams of income. Again, a separate life. But that's something that you can break down, right? I have $100,000 in debt every month. This is what I'm going to be able to, I'm going to do. It's also something, finances is something that is really tangible, that you can set a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goal when it comes to things like debt and savings, right? So if you're making $50,000 a year and you are $50,000 in debt, obviously, if you don't have additional forms of income, you're not going to be debt-free in a year. So debt-free may seem, oh wow, it's way, way up here, but okay, let's break it down. I've identified where I'm wasting $5,000. Can I take that $5,000, pay off debt in it with a certain amount of it, take the other amount, invest it back into my business, invest it back into myself, start a business? How do you get yourself to increase your income to get rid of that debt? Again, something very tangible that you can break down. When it comes to improving relationships, so say you feel like you are distant from your spouse and your goal is this year, I want to be in love with my husband or my wife by the end of the year. Love is an action step. What are the actions you need to take every quarter in order to improve that relationship, right? And that may be something as simple as, you know what? We're going to go out to coffee once a week, 1 hour. I'm going to schedule it like a meeting, and I'm never going to put anything in that place, and we're just going to talk like we're getting to know each other. All of those things are so doable. Everything that you want to achieve has an action for you to do in order for you to achieve it. Whether it's something that you want to feel, whether it's something that you want to physically be able to tangibly touch, right? Or be able to physically do. I believe that everybody has the capacity to learn whatever you want to physically do, right? If you're crappy at, arbitrarily again, you always admire people who can do archery, and you want to learn how to do archery, but you're horrible at it. No worries. You can do that as long as you physically have hands. Well, not even that, because I've seen people who were physically challenged actually do archery. So you just have to make no excuse about it. You just have to make sure, okay, I'm going to make a step towards it every single day, right? And you can put physical actions behind those things. So that is what your year should look like, right? So let's talk about what we want to do on a daily basis. I'm going to take that down. Take it down. Is that helpful? Let me know if that's helpful for you guys. So when we talk about looking things, we begin with the end in mind. We're looking at our 1 year goal at the end of the year. We're breaking it down into quarters. We are making action steps for each quarters. We are doing an achievement check-in at the last month of each quarter, the next to last week of the last month of each quarter. So that's how it is, kind of like from a bird's eye view. Now, if we want to bring it to an eagle's eye view, we want to put a little bit more detail in it. We want to talk about what we need to do on a daily basis. So, 1, plan your day the night before. I cannot emphasize that enough. Also, physically write stuff down. I remember a friend once told me, I used to, always write stuff down, and she was like, if I have to write down what I need to do the next day, then I'm too busy. I was like, yeah, okay. So, 3 years later, she also writes things down, and I'm like, you're not too busy? She's like, no, I have to do this in order for I can make sure that I achieve it, right? It's just a different view, right? She began to see things in a different way. On a daily basis, you should be checking in with yourself, right? You should be, the night before, it's really important, can't emphasize this enough, you should be planning for your day the night before. So your Tuesday doesn't start Tuesday when you wake up, your Tuesday starts on Monday night, right? This is important when it comes to just about any and everything, because 1, when you are planning things the night before, your brain is going over it at night. It is actually facilitating what you need to do the next day. And it also makes you stay really realistic, right? So if on Sunday night you're planning for the week and you're planning for Monday, and you're writing down 13 things, you can really look and say, 1, am I realistically going to achieve all 13 of these things on Monday? Number 2, all 13 things on this list have to be done Monday by midnight? What can I do Tuesday? What can I just make sure that's being done by the end of the week, right? Be very specific with yourself about what you're going to achieve. Every evening, you should be thinking about what are the top 3 things that you need to be doing the next day. So, again, I get a little anal about this because of my type A personality. Every quarter, actually, what I do is I have a spreadsheet where I break my day down by 30-minute segments. And told you that my husband says I need calendars anonymous. I break my day down by 30-minute segments, and I pre-plan kind of like, this is what my ideal day looks like. Do I do that every day? Absolutely not. Am I constantly, every day at 6:45, I kind of do this when I go to the gym, walk out the door, but other than that, every day at 2:30, I'm not doing the same thing. But at least have an overview of what you really want to do. This is really, really important, especially if you are an entrepreneur, particularly a solopreneur. So I work for myself, I work from home, and it is really easy, particularly in the winter time, to just sit on the couch in front of my fireplace and get absolutely nothing done. That'll be easy peasy, right? But if I do that, I know that the goals that I have, I'm not going to be able to achieve them. That still doesn't motivate me. I'm being completely honest. People always ask, like, oh, how do you stay motivated? I don't. I just take action. You don't need motivation. You just need action. So, what I do is I generally have my day broken down into blocks, right? My first block, I'm going to actually do this all symbolically, is where I fill my cup. That's my first block. And I talked about this the other day. One of the reasons why we, particularly women get worn out is that we start the day half full, right? I fill my cup. So my day is broken into 4 blocks. My first block is making sure that I am praying, making sure that I am meditating, and making sure that I'm getting physical movement. Like even on the days where, so for example, Wednesdays, I do my radio show. I don't go to the gym on Wednesday mornings because I just created it as a day off. So that's also a really important part of pre-planning your week. Don't just take arbitrary days off from your workout, right? Assalamu alaikum, Diva. Oh, we got to get you filled up. Can't start every day half full. And I know it's a challenge for you because of everything that goes on in your life, but we got to get you filled up. And so that's another part of kind of like taking that, looking at your bird's eye view, is that I can say, well, I'm going to take 2 days off from working out a week. So what 2 days are most convenient for my lifestyle? So I found that if I went to the gym in the morning before my radio show, when I came back, I felt very rushed, right? The things that I had to do to set up the camera and to do all of the things that I needed for the radio show. So what I did was I designed my workout schedule so that Wednesdays is my day off. But when I get up in the morning, I still pray, I still meditate, and normally I'll try to throw some squats or push-ups, just even if I do like 30 or 40, just something to get my blood moving. Every morning, the human body was meant to move. It activates every other sense that you have. You have to physically move. And so, filling my cup in the morning, right? So for you, that may mean you get up 30 minutes earlier. That may mean that you get up an hour earlier or go to bed an hour earlier at night so that you can get up. But always fill your cup in the morning, right? Always fill your cup. Sacrifice for yourself. So people are like, oh, I'm not a morning person. I don't want to get up. I get up 30 minutes before I got to be to work because it takes me 10 minutes to get there. Bruh. So don't do that. So now in my second window, this is when I start looking at like, what are the things or the commitments that I have during that time that needs to be in that second window, right? So these are the commitments to other people. Most days, it's when I have clients, right? But that's just me, right? This may be the time that if you're a writer that you need to write, right? If that's when your creative energy flows. Whatever it is, you plan it during that window, right? So you're talking 9 to 12, you're talking 1 to 4, you're talking 5 to 8 p.m., right? So if you're a person that works and you are coming home, this may be your family window, right? Or you may need to break it down and say, you know what? 5 to 7 is family time, 8 p.m. Or 7 p.m. to 8 is husband time because the kids are in bed. And your goal that year this year is to improve your relationship with your husband. You have to schedule out that time, right? So you decide what you're going to do in that block. Now the next day, those blocks may completely change. So for example, always fill my cup first. Fill your cup, fill your cup. So, for example, on Wednesday, 9 to 12 is about radio for me. It's not about clients, right? But I know, okay, I have this 9 to 12 block. My radio show is from 10 to 11 a.m. Make sure you set your alarm to tune in every Wednesday at 10 to 11 for Mornings with Mubarak on 103.5 FM in New Haven, or right here on Facebook. Self-plug. So I've been doing radio for going on 2 years now. And this Wednesday coming up, so we just talked to Miss Millionaire Mindset, Roberta Husky, last week, which is really interesting. Scroll down my feed and actually look at it because she's so inspiring. She was a single mom, she was homeless, she was broke, and now she has 2 multi-million-dollar businesses, and she is a real estate guru. So that may be really helpful for you. So go ahead and scroll my feed. If you're on Instagram, go to Facebook to the page and see it. And so I know that, okay, well, 10 to 11, really kind of like 9 to 11 because I got to set up and everything. I know that that's going to be radio time. And so 11 to 12, I'm still in my block. And I know that I may have to use that time to call future guests, to plan a phone pre-interview. So I like to talk to people before. I don't like talking to people for the first time when they come sit down with me, right? I talk to them before. So it may be a time that I plan a pre-interview, but I've given that block to my radio show, right? So block off what you're doing during that time, right? So when you're planning like this, when you're blocking like this, then you can fit it all in. Let me backtrack a little bit, because the other thing that I teach when I teach this to clients is doing a brain dump. If this is the first time that you've ever done that and you're like, I'm not a scheduled person, you want to do a brain dump and really determine kind of like what is everything that I need to do, right? I need to cook for the family. I need to have time to clean. I manage 2 Facebook pages, so I need to actually, and they're for my business or they're for my boss, and I need to manage Facebook. I need to manage IG. I need to spend time with husband. Right? So you write down literally everything. I need self-care time. I need everything that you need to do in categories for the week, and then you figure out how you need to do that. So for example, self-care is not a day. Besides this part, you say you get a massage every week. Oh, if you do, can you buy me a couple? Massages are expensive, bruh. They want like $120. Like, bruh. It's worth it, but can't do it every week. But if you can, go for it. and Facebook lets you send people gifts. Feel free to DM me a massage gift. Or the money for a massage gift. So if that's not something you're going to do on a daily basis, right? So one of the things that I used to do that I think this may be helpful for the moms out there. So as you know, I have 4 children. I say that all the time because I recognize that sometimes people are listening to me for the first time and they may be like, who is this lady and what does she do? So I have 4 children, and when I got pregnant with my 3rd child, which is my daughter, so I have 3 boys and 1 girl. They're all 2 years apart, with the exception of the 2 middle ones. They're 2 years and 9 months apart. But being pregnant every other year was exhausting. And I was a stay-at-home mom. I homeschooled when they got to school age. So I was in nurture mode all the time, in give mode all the time. I just felt like, there was tubes coming from me, and I was just walking around just feeding blood to everybody all day. I was in zombie mode. And parents of young kids, definitely I know you can relate. Let me know, right? You just feel like you're giving all the time. So what I did was I told my husband, I said, once a month, that's all I felt I needed at that time. Now I have to tell you, this did turn into once a week. But I started off with once a month, I am going to leave at Fajr, and I will be back before Maghrib. And I just need to spend time with myself. I need to spend time. And it doesn't mean, and let me say, for people who are thinking, I can't afford to go and get a massage, or I can't go do retail therapy. You don't have to do retail therapy. Just spend time with yourself. Spending time with yourself does not always have to involve an extraordinary amount of money. I can remember this restaurant that I used to love to go to. And when I first started taking my me days, I would go to the restaurant, and I was maybe 7, 8 months pregnant. And that's when I was oh my God, I was so stressed out, right? Because I had 2 little ones, 2 and 4, and I was 8 months pregnant. And I was huge when I was pregnant. People used to always ask me, are you having twins? I'd be like, no, I'm not having twins. The baby just likes to be in a farm. So I used to be really huge, and I would go to this restaurant, and the first couple of times that I went, the hostess, she would just a minute, ma'am, and she would take people in front of me. And at first I thought she was being funny, but then I realized that she assumed that I was waiting for somebody. They got to know me though. And I would be seated, and the waitress would always come over and say, all right, would you like a menu, or are you waiting for somebody? Do you want to order, or are you waiting for somebody? And I would say, nope, not waiting for anybody. And I would literally sit. So we live, it's a restaurant, and it had an ocean view. Well, actually, it's a sound. It's not really an ocean, but it leads to the ocean. It's a water view. That's what it is. And I love the water. I love water views. I just love the water, period. I don't know, I have the ocean in my body. I need to live next, the ocean needs to be my backyard at some point in my life. That is when I show you my house and one day and my backyard is the ocean, and you're like, oh, Mubaraka achieved her dream. Alhamdulillah. So, I love the ocean. So, the restaurant, and I would go, and I would just sit there, and I would have lunch by myself. And I would read a magazine. I love magazines. Sometimes I would read the paper, try not to, because I really don't like being bummed out by the news. But love reading magazines. And I would literally sit there for 2 hours and just have lunch with myself. And just that. So if you can imagine kind of like a mom of 3 or 2 toddlers and 8 months pregnant, where you're literally being sucked of life in cells, you're literally feeding a growing human in yourself, right? That is a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work. And when you take that time to just relax and sit back and just be yourself, just be with you, you're going to restore. You're going to restore yourself. Now, I kept this up for a very, very long time, where it went from me doing it once a month into I was like, I think I need to do this twice a month. I think I need to do this once a week. But when I got to once a week, I had 4 kids by then, and I definitely did it once a week. And what I would do is it kind of changed to what I felt I needed at the time, right? So now, you know that when you got a lot of kids and your husband is watching the kids, shopping takes a real long time. You really should take time to read labels in the store. Not because you don't know what's inside of the tomato sauce the same tomato sauce that you've been buying for the last 8 years. It's just, it makes you take longer because you're trying to get away from the kids. So it turned into me, doing it once a week and saying, you know what, I don't mind spending an hour shopping and being really intentional about that, and then spending time with myself for the other day. So my shopping days would start early and they would end late because they combined with my me days. It's so funny because I was thinking about this the other day, and what I was thinking about was, it is now habitual for me. Every time I go get groceries, I have to get a Starbucks coffee, because when the kids were small, I spent a lot of time in Starbucks having me time. So even though I'm an empty nester now, my kids are grown, I actually sometimes go shopping with my now daughter-in-law. We go to the store and I'm like, we're gonna stop for coffee. We'll go to Starbucks after. I don't know if she knows this, but that is really the reason why I always go get a Starbucks coffee, because it is now connected to relaxation for me, because that is what it was for such a long time. Right? Yes, Adiba, every time. Spent a whole 3 hours in Aldi. Yep. I need to go to Target. I need to get something that turns into another 2-hour trip. Yep. And that is also filling your cup. So let me say that. If you have a hard time saying okay, I'm going to just literally have nothing to do and go out, if spending time alone requires you to go into Target and then browse around and then go, most Targets actually have a Starbucks in it now. It requires you to have a seat in Starbucks and have a drink. What I would encourage you to do is, instead of walking around Target trying to look at, I'm just going to see how much a coat is going to cost because I need to buy the kid a coat. I just want to price around a coat. Be aware that you're trying to get alone time and go to Starbucks, sit down and intentionally get alone time, right? Intentionally sit down and get alone time. I think that's so important. We do that so that we don't feel guilty. A mom's guilt, let me tell you, that guilt is strong. It will, unless you are intentionally trying to really give yourself permission, it will stick with you for a very long time. Even my son now, who's 19, when he was in high school, I think I recognized it when he was in high school, so I'm less likely to do it, but sometimes I still do it. When he was in high school and, they would have spring break or winter break, I would feel guilty, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing stuff all day and he's sitting home and he's doing nothing. And I would go home to be like, hey, you want to go out? And he's gone because he's not thinking about me spending time with him or him spending time with me. He's thinking about living his life. So I started thinking about living my life too. Don't want to spend time with your mama. So you have to really be intentional and purposeful about how you are direct. Also, too, I didn't finish my sentence. I hate when I do that. You have to be intentional and purposeful about how you are directing your time. The other thing about that is you want to make sure that if your goal is to, hey, I work all day and I'm not spending enough time with my kids, again, setting action steps that, hey, I'm going to spend 1 hour uninterrupted, no social media, no phone, just sitting down playing a game with my kid. When you are busy, you aren't feeling guilty because you know that you took those action steps. Like, okay, I did spend time. Because when we're in the feeling of guilt, we tend to overlook all of the other things that we're actually doing, right? When we're in that feeling of, oh, and this happens with weight too, right? Have you ever felt like, oh my gosh, I was doing so good, now I'm eating like crap, I've gained 10 pounds, blah, 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 blah. And you're not even giving yourself the credit for the fact that, hey, you lost 40 pounds and life began to happen and you gained 10 back and now you're conscious of that and now you get up and you start again, right? You get up and you continue the journey. But you're not giving yourself credit for how good you did. You're still, even if you've gained 10 of the 40 back, you're still 30 pounds closer to where you want to be. You're still 30 pounds closer to being a healthier you. And you don't give yourself credit for that. So, and when you are in a state of guilt, all of that is clouded, right? Again, that's kind of like when writing stuff down becomes really important. So, I can talk about this all day because I talk a lot. But that is my tips. So, real quick review, if you're just tuning in and you did not catch the whole live, once I log off, you want to go back and you want to watch the live. You can also share this video with other people to make it helpful. If you're on Facebook, do a Facebook watch party for me. You want to make sure you begin with the end in mind. Set your goals out for a year, right? Make them big enough so they are, you don't envision yourself like exactly how you're going to get there, but realistic enough that you know I can take one step, right? So 1 year. Break that down. That was our first week. Break your year down into quarters. Give yourself check-ins, and that's kind of what we just talked about, right? What have you achieved? Like by the end of your first quarter, what have you achieved? What are the goals you need to adjust for this quarter? So you're making goals for the year, and then you're going to check in with yourself or your team or your business or whatever you're using this for. So again, this can be used for personally, it can be used career-wise, it can be used for business, it can be used for organization. Check in that last week. On a daily basis, what are the things that you need to be doing on a daily basis so that you keep your time and your schedule organized, right? Be consistent, right? So start your day with your cup filled up. Put your day into 4-hour blocks. Determine what each block is going to contain. Make each one of your blocks, it is specific to your goals. Get your bucket list, your brain dump rather. Got a brain dump of everything that you need to do. How do you fill that in your week, right? So, and every night, you need to be writing down what you're going to be doing the next day. What is the top 3 things that are the most important things that you need to be doing the next day? And then at the end of the night, you check whether or not you completed those things and what you needed to do. So that is a little bit planning. So next week, when I put on my stories, how many people has a plan for 2020, I should not get a 100% no. Now you know you need to go plan. Make sure that you have action steps, because a goal without a plan is simply a dream. All right? So until tomorrow, I will talk to you then. Assalamu alaikum.